Hi, my name is Alessandro Cangelosi and that's a video tutorial coming from cgcookie.com for Max Cookie. Today we'll work on a free tutorial talking about cloth ruffles. So we'll see how to model cloth ruffles. We are not focusing on the dynamic, on the cloth simulation, but how to find a trick to create ruffles and clothing just using some modeling tricks, avoiding to create everything about the model manually or by polymodeling. So we'll find an effective way to simulate something like that, and then we'll create some material using V-Ray, but we can do the same thing using also Mentor-Ray. Let's start to create the scene. So let's start creating the scene. The main purpose is to create some cloth with ruffles, so we have to find a nice approach to do it. The first thing we need to do is to work with a unit setup set to centimeters, and then we can start to work. So the main idea is to try to simulate the ruffles and to model it, but you know, modeling the ruffles can be tedious and really long, and you know, maybe you can need time to do it, and if you have a really complex cloth, it will be really long and really tedious. So my main idea is to do something in an automatic way. So what do we need to simulate for the ruffles? Let's imagine that we have a mesh with a nice amount of detail. Let's think about maybe something like that. If we try to simulate a ruffles, we have to imagine that we have the model, let's rotate it, and then we have, for example, the wave, and to simulate it, we can, for example, use a polyselect. Then we go to select maybe just the polygons, there, maybe with the soft selection, and you see we have this one, and then we go to have a wave modifier, and then we can have a polyselect to close the selection. We go to set the wave, and we have to tune the gizmo. So let's rotate by 90 degrees, and we can scale it. So we have, and we can decide, for example, to have a different sides for our waves, and close the selection. And you see that this one can be a way to create some ruffles over a cloth, but obviously this one is not so precise because we are not using the a nice kind of modeling. You can obviously model it manually, or you can decide, for example, to work on this one to make some changes or to simulate a more complex cloth simulation there. But my main idea is to do something using the cloth simulator. So what I mean, we can create again a plane. Let's remove the grid to have a nicer look, and go with shaded wave, and let's go to pick this one, and we can have something bigger. So let's try with 3 meters and maybe 20 centimeters or maybe 25 centimeters. We'll have obviously more detail there. Let's try with 200, maybe more, 240, and let's try to have 24. We need a nice amount of detail because we need to simulate this kind of cloth. So that's our main ruffle cloth, and actually it's just a plane. So what we have to do is to go there and choose, we have obviously the generate mapping coordinates, so we can apply the texture we like, and then we can have a cloth modifier, because I like to simulate the clothes to have a nice look for our ruffles. But the main idea is that we have to simulate the elastic way to simulate the ruffles. And to simulate the ruffle, we can just create, for example, a box. We can move it. And then I like to attach the clothes to this one. So to do something like that, we have to go there, create a group from the top view, and we can select some vertices to have a rigid area there, maybe just a little bit more little. So we are trying to simulate some elastic material inside. Make a group, and let's call it elastic attach. Nice. So you see that now we have a group there that is not assigned. We'll try to do something really simple for the simulation there. So we use just a node, and we can connect to this one. So now these vertices are connected to this part. Let's close and back to the orthographic view. Okay. Now we have this one. I like to remove the edges faces on the selection so we can see in a better way the selection there. Now you know we can do something really simple. We can go inside the objects properties for the cloth. We have the plane 2, but we can rename it. Let's call it Ruffles. Then back in the object properties, select the ruffles. It is a cloth, and we can use, for example, the silk preset. You can manage the preset later, you can make changes, but it's not the main area I like to talk about, because I like just to see the basic setup to solve this problem. So now you see that we have the cloth modifier, but I like to see what happens if we try to simulate something. If we launch the simulation, you see that the cloth is falling down and nothing more happens. So we are doing nothing in this way. We have just a simulation for the dynamic, and that's not so nice. So let's erase the simulation, reset the state, so we have the basic state there. So we'll try to simulate the elastic way, and to simulate it, the main idea is to have an animation for this one. So we'll have that maybe in 40 frames. We have a scaling for this one. So that's the animation. And now we can just pick again the cloth, and we can try to see what happened with the simulation. You see that something is happening, and we are starting to have the simulation of the falling down of the cloth, but then we have also a really nice looking ruffles over the mesh, and that's really nice. Let's stop it, and you see that that's our mesh, then it falls down, and then we have our ruffles. You can see that the shape is really nice and really realistic actually. If we like to have less falling down, we have just to manage the gravity. So we can do something really simple. We can go there and we can try to simulate a lower gravity. Let's try, for example, minus 300. Erase simulation and simulate, and we should have a little bit less falling down, or it will fall down a little bit slower, and this will be useful to simulate it. And obviously the look will be different. So you see we have the mesh standing more on the top, and then we can decide to rotate it manually. So it's a different way to decide how to play with it. But the main idea is that now we have this mesh. To have a better simulation, let's say we have just to be sure that we have the check intersection and the self-collision. So we are sure that the mesh is not colliding with, is not self-colliding phases. So erase the simulation, reset the state, and then again simulate. So we have our frames. It was a little bit slower, but now we are sure that the mesh is working really nice. Okay. So, now we have this one, and we can say, okay, how we can apply to a cloth, how we can use it, because we have just a dynamic simulation actually, and that's not so useful. But obviously you see that the quality is really higher than this one, and we had to model nothing. So let's remove the old test and let's focus on this one. So the first thing we have to do is to have a size for this one, because actually it's just a plane. So if we like to have a depth, we have to use the shell modifier, and you see that it is adding a little bit of size to this one. We can decide to have, for example, 0.1, so really little. And we have the possibility to decide that the outer have, for example, the material set to 2, and for example the edges are set to 3, so we have different ID. In this way, if we go to the UV map in the unwrapper and we go to select all faces, and that's a really simple way, we can use the plus button to have everything, and then we open the UV editor, you see that we have all the maps there inside the 0.1 space. If we like to check if we have overlapping, we can use the X view, and we can set to overlapped UV face, and you see that all the faces are overlapping, obviously because both sides are on the same level. So let's go there, and let's say that we like to split and flatten the UV maps coordinates using the material ID. So we click over this one, and it is working, and you see that it's splitted everything. Let's see if we have something, and you see that we have still some overlapped phases. Sorry, but it crashed. So let's go back to the unwrapper, and we can decide again, but we can do also something different. So we can decide to select, let's remove the ignore backfacing, and let's say that we select the ID one. If we go inside there, you see that there the ID one on the back, and we can, for example, say to break this one, and we can move it there, and then we can say to select the 2, and we can move it on the other side, and let's see if we have the number 3, 2, and we can break. Let's see if we'll be able to move it. Let's lock the selection and move it there. Okay, we can scale a little bit this one, and we can decide to let's scale just on one axis. Okay, and then on the other axis. Perfect. Then we move it there, unlock the selection, move on the other side, and we can decide to pick this one and scale just a little bit over this axis and a lot over the other axis, so we can maintain the proportion of the render we are doing. Then let's move it there. Okay, and we can do the same with the others. So let's select, scale on this axis. Obviously, if you can be more precise, trying to scale in the right way, so you will have no stretches. But actually, I'm just doing everything really fast just to have something to work on. So we can close the UV editor, and then we can ask for the overlapping, and we have no overlapping over the object, so that's really nice. Okay, save the project, and now we need something more. We need to find the frame and use it as modeling tool. So let's go to pick, for example, the frame number 40, this one, and let's say that this one has a snapshot. So let's use the X key, snapshot. Perfect. We say to use just one frame, this one, as a mesh. Perfect. We have a copy. So now we can choose in the selection. We have Ruffles 01, and this one can be moved. Then we can select both this object, go in there inside the layers, and let's create a layer. And let's call it Ruffles Construction. Okay. And then back to the default layer. Now we can set to height. So you see we have no layers inside, and save. Obviously now if we select this one and we say check for overlapping, we have nothing. So now we need to use this one as a modeling piece. So what we can do? Let's imagine that we have let's say maybe an ellipse. Obviously I will use a really simple shape, and let's say that we have another there, sorry, using the shift key. Let's make maybe 10 copies, or maybe we can use another way. So let's go back there. Let's create an array. Okay, so we have to move over, we need a scale, so let's use the preview, and we need a movement over the z-axis. Let's say maybe something like that, and we need also a scaling, and let's say that we have 150 and 150. Okay, let's say that that's all, or maybe we can have more copies, so let's say maybe 15, and we'll have more spacing. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's say that's nice. So we have all the space there. Obviously we have some simple, really simple shape. Let's say that we select all shape, and let's try to see if we have the possibility to use a noise, just to have some noises. Okay, let's go to have okay, that is more little, but that is too much. Let's say maybe 5, 2. Okay, and let's say maybe 5 centimeters and 5 centimeters. Let's say 1, 0, 5. I'm trying to catch a nice level, and then we can have, you see, a little bit of changes. So nothing special, just a simple setup. And let's save. Now we need obviously to use these meshes to control the complete cloth. So something that can be done is to use the path deform. So we can click over path deform, and the biggest issue is that we have to realign this one to the first of all, let's go for x-axis, and let's see if we need, okay, we can use, for example, for the moment 35, and you see we can decide how much, and we can have a little bit of stretching, and if you like we can also twist the mesh. The main problem is that we need to realign. So something that can be done is to go there over the top axis, and we have for sure to rotate again this one, but I like to be sure that we are doing the right thing. So let's pick also the first one, so we can see if everything is going in the right way. Okay, maybe it needs some rotation. I think I picked the wrong one. So the main idea, as you can see, is to use this one to prepare everything. So obviously you need to do the same thing for all of it, and you see that you have a maximum control because you can decide to use this one and you can move it, and then if you like, first of all you have the possibility to control also the rotation. And another thing we have to do is we have to move the pivot sorry, it crashed again, sorry. So let's do now the changes to the pivot. So let's go there, affect pivot, and we move it in this area, maybe there. Okay, nice, perfect. Then we go to have the let's use just this one and this one. This one will have the path deform. Let's pick the path, and let's say that we use the z-axis. Let's rotate it, and then we can move it, let's say there, nice. And then we can rotate as we need. We can stretch as I said you, for example, and in this case, for example, we can say to have another copy, let's say a copy, and this one will go to close our mesh. Okay, nice. So that's complete. And obviously you can add some manipulators to create a more complex result. Let's save, and then we can exit from the isolation, and we can do the same for all meshes. So I will do it the same so we can see the final result together in a few minutes. So I just finished So you see I prepared just some meshes. So at this to have the best result, you can, for example, create different ruffles, and then you can have more variation, because you see actually whole ruffles are similar to the other one, so you can create something different. And if you like, you can do something, and I mean, you can, for example, but let's say before, you can, for example, simulate again the cloth. So what I mean that, for example, we can pick this one, go in the isolation, set the cloth, let's say that we have, for example, a box there. Then we can go back there, we say group, and let's select those meshes really fast, make a group and attach to node, then object properties, and this ruffle is a cloth and it's satin. Now it depends on the quality of the mesh, and we can have strange collision, or we can have some issue. So we make just a test, a really fast test. Let's go to have the right gravity and simulate. And you see it is calculating. Let's leave some frames just to see what happened. Okay, it became really slow because our mesh is complex, but you know, you can create a more simple ruffle and then simulate again the cloth with it. So I leave this one there so you can play with it, and this one will be display as boxes, and it's not renderable. Back to all ruffles. Let's see. Maybe this one can be our render. Let's go to set a basic render setup. Let's go for 900 and 400. And we can have, let's say, maybe V-Ray, or you can do it with mental rates, not the problem. And we go to set a light. In this case, we can use a V-Ray light, and we go for a dome, so we can simulate the HDR illumination. Let's go for 1. And we can create a V-Ray HDR map and browse, and we go to the right folder, and this one comes with 3ds Max. Let's say spherical, and then we go to set the texture. We use this one as an instance, 248, and it's full dome. And now we go inside the render. Let's say that we have a Michelin, a Trevally. We go for the resolution. We have the global illumination, let's say radiance, and actually we can use the really low. And then we have the light cache. I have 32 core. You can use the number of core you have. Show calculation phase, so we can see what we are doing, and the same for this one. Let's go for a more little render region, and let's see what we have in rendering. It is really dark. The color, okay, we have the linear workflow, and we can go inside our map, and let's say to use an higher value, maybe 25. Again, render. Okay, you see that now we have more illumination. And obviously it is really hot red. We can do something for it. And I mean, first of all, I like to have more subdivision for the illumination. And then we go inside the map, and that's, you see the map, it's really red. We can use a color correction, keep all map, and we remove a little bit of saturation. Okay, let's try again. And you see that now we have the right color. We have just to add a simple, but let's say that we have inside the environment, we can just say that this one is not visible and save. And now we set a really simple material. And in this case, we go there. Let's create something like call it Ruffles. Let's select all the Ruffles using the Shift key. Assign this one. And this one will be a V-Ray material, but obviously you can create the same material using Main Array. And let's choose a color. Let's try with a red, maybe. And let's have a brighter red there. And we have freshener reflection, obviously, and we'll have an higher IRR because I like to have more reflection. In this case, if we go to render, obviously we'll have something strange because we have reflectivity over the cloth, and it seems something metallic. So you see we have a really huge reflectivity, and what we have to do is to change something. We have to say that our cloth will have, let's say maybe 55 for the glossiness. And in this case, if we go to see the render and we render just a place like this one, you will see that we have a nicer reflectivity because we have the glossiness. So it is more similar to a nicer material, but we have to change also something more. And I mean, we can go, for example, in the first of all, we can have a higher subdivision, and then we go to have a better control over the anisotropy, and we go for a really high anisotropy. Let's try with 0.35, and we change the rotation, let's say to 90. If we go to render the same place, we see that we have something more similar to a cloth. If you like to change the color, you have just to go there, and let's imagine that we go for something like bluish. Let's change the color from there too. Let's say something more clear. And then, if you like, we can simulate just this part. And then we can see that, if you like, you can manipulate the highlight glossiness to have a nicer look. So you see that's the result. Obviously you can add a texture if needed. You can create something really complex. But first of all, let's go to, for example, 0.35 to see if it is looking better. And then we can have also more glossiness there. Let's say maybe let's try it 48. Okay, and obviously you have complete control over it from there, so you can decide to have still more glossiness from there, and let's say maybe 0.3, 0.4 or 0.35, and in this way you'll have complete control over the reflectivity and the glossiness of this material. So you can decide how much reflection you have and all the other parameters. So you see, for example, in this way, it seems that we have something nicer than before. Perfect. If you like to, let's set before the show save frame, we can go a little bit far. And if you like to have, let's say, something more clean during the rendering, you can have, for example, 110, and inside the settings we can have 16 for the minimum samples, 2 for the global subdivision multiplier, and let's have a lower noise thresholds, and then that's all, because we are doing now the so complex render. And in this case we can go back to the render and render the complete scene. So I remove this one and I launch the render. So you see, it is really nice. We have places that needs fixing, or you can use, for example, longer clouds, or you can create more irregular shape, but this is the basic technique to model some ruffles and be prepared to simulate it. For the moment that's all, and I hope to see you back on Max Cookie to check for new tutorial coming from cgcookie.com. Bye!